Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gary Singh with Ondot Systems, a company that's based out of Silicon Valley, California. And we solve two problems for the marketplace. The first is that Jim talked about earlier in the day, which is about building a relationship with banks and their consumers. And the second part is giving consumers an experience before, during, and after a payment. We believe payments are a high-frequency instrument, and banks should use that as an opportunity to start that conversation, not to be confused with mobile banking, and not to be confused with the pays of the world. Those are specific use cases that are different. What we're talking about is taking this piece of plastic that's sitting in all your wallets and giving it a digital voice. So let me talk about that with my simple phone application here. It tells you everything about your payment instruments, credit or debit, and all the cards that you may have in your portfolio. In this example, I have myself, my wife, and my daughter. It also tells you spend information across those cards if you want to know what your spend patterns have been for the past month, past year, and so on and so forth. So if I go into my card, very quickly you can see some of the capabilities that are built into the application. It's giving full control of how to manage this piece of plastic in a digital way back to the consumer. It's interactive and it's real time. So all the changes that you put into this will happen in milliseconds, not in days or over 72 hours. So at a first example here, you see how you can turn your card on off. This is how Ondot started back in 2014, and it did start at Finovate. One example I want to give you very quickly is, if you're doing online shopping as e-commerce takes off, would you rather enter this number or would you rather enter this number? And the dynamic CVV will change every time you go into this application. The use cases for this simple virtual card numbers are immense. We talk about card on file across different vendors and multiple merchants. You can make each one of those unique as you go forward for your consumers, giving that control back to the consumers. Second example I want to give you is, if I go into my control preferences, and I'm just going to give you one example, we have many ways to tie location to the card user. The first one is my location, so my card will only work if I'm next to the card itself. So it's very good in terms of addressing false declines, but also at the same time ensuring that my card only works when I'm next to it. The second example that I want to give you is my regions. This is a very simple example of where, if you want to control where the card is being used. This could be good for SMEs, small business owners. It could be good for delegates. It could be for delivery drivers. As you can see right here, when I go into that region, automatically it pops up the map. And whatever you see on this map is whether this card will work. Anything outside this map, the card won't work. So if I want to use it in Sharjah as well, my card will work there as well. So it's great for small business owners. I give it a name, and I save this region, and my card will only work in this particular region. Let me go back. I'm not going to do any changes. The last example I want to give you is the bottom one, which is international. So what this basically means is my country of residence is the United States. If I turn this on, my card will only work in the United States. So when I travel, I actually do a travel notification to the bank. You can see that I'm traveling to India. So when I get to India, my card is going to work there as well. In addition to the US, it's also going to work in India. So this is really great for this Middle East section because you have a lot of migrants who go back and forth between different countries. So the card works here, but oftentimes their card gets declined when they go to their home country because the spend patterns are different. So these are some of the great examples of how you can tie your location to the card services. The next example I'm going to show you is, if I go back to the main screen, and I want to do a quick transaction, I'm buying a cup of coffee. So I put in $5 to buy the coffee, and you get the notification right here. And let's say my card has to be turned off by the bank for some reason. I do the same transaction, $5. I get the same message, and I can actually override it for the next transaction. So the next time I do the transaction, because I overrode the bank, the transaction will actually go through even the card is turned off. So this way you're never without a card, and I'm still able to buy my coffee. And the last example I want to give you is where you can cross-sell and upsell a service. So in this example, if I go back, as you can see in February, I'm spending a lot of money. So what I'm going to do is, I have my cards broken down, and my debit or my credit limits are been reached for the month of February. I do the transaction, and as you can see, the transaction has been declined in this case. So what I do next is, because there's insufficient funds in my service, I'm going to show that transaction one more time. And as you can see, it tells you why that transaction was denied, because it's insufficient funds in my debit card or my credit card. And I can quickly enroll into protecting and making that transaction go. And because this is facial recognition, it's working right away, so it's very seamless from a consumer perspective. I'm not adding my logins and information. So at this point, I have actually subscribed to the service so that I can go and fix my car, even though I don't have the funds in my system. Because the funds were insufficient, I subscribed to overdraft protection. So now when I do the $500 transaction, that transaction will actually go through. So these are just some of the examples that I had for you today to showcase you the examples of how the service can, A, give control back to the consumers, and more importantly, it allows the banks to start a conversation with the consumer, which is real-time, based on your spend patterns. Jim also mentioned in the morning that you're building a partnership between your consumers and the bank. What better way to do that but through the payments instruments, which are happening on a highly frequent basis when and where you use those payments before, during, and after payment takes place. You can cross-sell them into loans, you can cross-sell them into overdraft protection, you can increase credit limits, you can do all those types of things that were not possible before because this thing was not digitized. So this application digitizes it. And beyond that, we also have services in the analytics side. We call it interactive analytics, which takes all this data, compiles this, and converts that into real-time actions, which engage, drive better consumer behavior and experience. For that part of the presentation, please come to our booth later on, and we'll tell you all about the interactive analytics. Thank you very much.